Howdy, I'm Winter Jones, and I want to make a video on my first time fully using OverSkill by Todd Dickerson. I'm blessed to work with Todd and Russell and the team over there. But I actually haven't had time to sit down and use OverSkill. I've watched videos, I've seen other people use it, saw all the things, but I have not used it yet fully. Like I haven't created anything. I've clicked around and done all that stuff, but haven't created anything. So I got some beta credits here, so those are free. And I'm gonna start a new app. And I was going over here to like templates, looking at some ideas, and one that is hilarious. So obviously, like the fairly uh, serious ideas, like things that you'd really want in the real world. But then one caught my eye, which is this one: finally receipts for petty stuff. So you just make receipts for like things that don't need receipts to give to your friends, which is kind of funny. So I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Like that's something maybe I could like work off of. So let's try this. So like we're gonna create an app and we're gonna try this. So let's just do. So we're gonna do. So in Overskill, one thing that's cool is there's a bunch of like pre-made stuff in here, but you can do a variety of things. So Todd has opted into using the best AI model at this moment. So it is basically hey, we're going to give you the best, so that way what you create is going to work and all this other stuff, instead of trying to like gamble in a sense with like lower tier models and trying to like reiterate, whereas we know Claude's going to deliver, right? So uh, the idea is we're going to click on this prompt, this little icon here, and it's going to go to this prompt builder. So we could just throw a prompt in there, but this prompt builder is going to allow us to throw our human words and then turn it into AI words, because one little secret is if you can get the AI to talk to the AI, guess who speaks better to the AI? The AI does. So what we want to build is we want to build like on the same kind of idea of like just a funny idea. Obviously, there's all kinds of things you could do. You can make apps for yourself. You can make apps for clients, or you can make, you know, a product and try and sell it that way. So we're just going to do an app for ourselves, and we're just going to try and figure out like a funny angle, but make it really simple. So yes, a to-do list app, right? But I want to make a different angle. So I'm going to see if I can just throw an idea in here and see where it takes us. Okay. Hello? Do I have whisper flow? Hello. So I want to create an app that is a to-do list for a personal app, but it is about money. So I want it so that there's a countdown for the end of the day and a set target goal for money. And as the target is not accomplished, as in the tasks are not completed, then I want the money dollar bills to start catching fire, and that's your timer is set by like the amount of money is on fire. And if you don't complete it, then the whole money is evaporated. But if you complete it, then it like shows boom, and then it adds that money to like a total, you know, as kind of like a fun way to like associate, to-do lists and the burning and cost of money. So I just use Whisperflow to say all that stuff in here. And then, so we do like, this is beta software in terms of like, there's like, it is really functional, but there are certain little things, like for instance, the text color on there. But we will sort that out because I am lucky enough to be involved so that I can put that input in there and be like, okay, the contrast on that button, the white on green is too hard to see. But now, it's analyzing it. So we got this thing, we took our idea, and then the idea is so it rewrote what we said in kind of a AI way. So the idea is it's an intersection between personal finance and gamified to-do lists, overlapping habits, and then it finds a whole bunch of similar things. This is one thing that Susan was pointing out on a call the other day, is that that's Susan Leonardson, an amazing person. Is that it's going to like find things in the market that are relative to what your idea is. So it's either it's a completely new idea, or it's like, hey, we've seen success in these areas, right? AI recommended for your thing: a loss aversion, money timer, real money impact linking. Yeah, no connect banks. Oh my gosh, no. And then turn, burn, and boom, history and streak. Certainly. Okay, so it gave us 3 ideas. One of the ideas is like way too complicated, like connecting banks and everything. And then it comes up with like a target audience. We're gonna say they're Gen Z. Gives us some information here, a business model. So business to consumer, it's freemium. We'll just do it's free. Save. And then it's individuals as our target market. And then we have design inspiration down here. And this is like a smart way of doing this. So if you take, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to like unhighlight it. But so what a good way to do it is if you go to like ChatGPT or whatever that does images and say, hey, give me like an image of a website that does blah, then it will generate like the over the top version of that. Like that's like basically really hard to recreate most of the time, but these ones seem all possible. And then you just have like an image that has a design that then you can feed into the AI as a base so that it can recreate that style. So this one, a forest theme. So we're going to say, I guess like Todoist, but like, yeah, we'll just pick one of these. In my mind, it doesn't look like any of these things, but that's fine. And then we can do some deep research to find the competitors and best practices, but we're not going to do that because we don't need to. And now it's going to build the perfect prompt. So now we've taken our human words, our idea, passed it through the little system, picked what we want, and now it's going to take all of that with all of the AI stuff and then create a proper prompt, because the idea for OverSkill in general is it's built for people who are running a business and doing real world stuff in that sense, so they don't really want to sit down and spend all day working on an app. They'd rather sit down, put the idea to paper, and then go do something else and then come back and see, hey, this app works. And preferably you would do like the first prompt, a test of everything, an audit of everything that you've seen and then that needs to be fixed or changed, and then you should be pretty close to like the final result depending on like, you know, your comfort with all of this. But and this is very much like Lovable and all of the rest of those kinds of apps. So basically we're building apps. It's an app that builds apps, right? So we're using AI to build the code and it's going to appear here, right? So it's essentially what I do. I'll give you a little sneak peek of like AI stuff, right? Like all of this, what was that? Anyways, so like I use all of this AI stuff in the background, Claude Code and all that fun stuff. And I use it through the terminal. And now this is essentially you having the same ability as I do, except for you don't have to think about hosting, database, all that stuff is completely taken care of. And you can see that is visible through here. So it's not going to be like a complete guide on like everything that's going on inside of OverSkill, but you can imagine that there's this chat. And you don't have to imagine because right there you have a chat, and that's where you control everything. There is what is it's doing, and what are the things it has access to, and what is it actually building on top of, which is visible inside of your dashboard. So the preview is going to be the end result of like your actual app, but the dashboard is everything that is kind of like happening behind the scenes in terms of like, you know, your information, even the code that it's creating is even accessible here. So like this is the app that it's being created, and you can see that it's making MD files, which is like, you know, how it will know to like, you know, essentially the information so that it can recreate that. A README file. Yeah, and it's pretty interesting. You can dive in here, and then that like shows you like the transparency of like what is actually happening in the background of your app. It's building code and running the code, and then it has to have access to a database, so it's going to be able to create the data inside of tables, all that stuff. So basically tables, data, and schema, and users and stuff are all what's in your database. Normally you'd have to go, you know, use Superbase or do something like that where you can then piece all these things together. And as a developer, that's like, you know, fairly standard, but now all this stuff is inside of one platform in terms of the analytics, logs, AI, so you can use different connections, API, all that stuff, and monetize. You know, I'm not going to go through all of that. It's not really like the point of this video. It's more and more because I already seen lots, so I know how all of this works, except for I haven't used it. So we have the design direction. Let's go to the preview. So as you can see, it says it created the tables in the database. So if we go here, maybe it'll just take a second for that to populate. And on here we have a task progress. So it's building the design system, and then it's going to create these utilities and components. Yes, okay. So yeah, and that's like why it's going to do it in this way is very much the influence of Todd. So that way it's like, okay, it knows, like, there's a bunch of best practices essentially. Like when you're doing this, just asking Claude code or something, it will use some best practices and stuff, but as you continue to do it, it'll kind of like, give you the easier answer rather than doing the proper way, which is like building things inside of components, making design system, making sure that things work on mobile, desktop, making sure like the UI is connected to a database so that it's not just fake buttons everywhere and like, fake data all over the place, so that you're seeing something that's not really real. So all that like best practices and all those flows and all those things, like you have to imagine that Todd runs ClickFunnels, which is a huge software business that has hundreds of thousands of users over its lifetime. Millions of people have signed up, I'm pretty sure. The amount of things that you've seen and like the amount of times like they've had to go and rebuild them and make sure that those mistakes or lessons are applied to the next thing. So it's like, okay, we did this and then that thing happened. Okay, cool. Now we make sure that the next time we do that another app, that thing is no longer a problem. So you're basically getting like that kind of knowledge backed into the background here. So hopefully that little rant made sense. I stopped talking because it started exploding. That's cool. So it did a confetti thing. I wonder how it's going to design the. Yeah, so it is going to take a minute. So one thing is cool is I'm pretty sure you can just leave this and come back to it. We will find out how much this costs in terms of credits. It's going to create the landing page, and I'm pretty sure by default it'll create the landing page that you can for like basically all the ideas, and then hook into user authentication so that people can sign up and use the app. So it's like basically all apps have that, so you have your sign up, log in, everyone's separated in the database and all that fun stuff. So you don't really have to worry about that, but just remember that. So that's the idea, is that every single app's going to follow that flow. So you're building on top of this like knowledge base of information and techniques, and then you're throwing your ID on top of that. So if you were to say something against, like in terms of like you're trying to make an idea, like, hey, I want a desktop app, or I want a mobile app, or I want a Chrome extension, this is not going to be able to do that. Or I want a Python script thing that's going to like there's all kinds of ideas that you might throw at it that aren't going to work technically because you're in the wrong space. This is for web apps that follow that user intake model. So that, and when you think about it, we have like the funnels that collect leads. One way to collect leads is to offer an app, right? So when they sign up to your application, you can also add a little checkbox that says, do you want promotional email, or you can just get transactional email. Need to change your password or whatever. So there's two options there. So you're collecting leads there, and then also when the inside of the UI of your app, there's places for you to put ads of your own things and upsells and all these different things, right? So you can kind of think of like the app as like a funnel. It's definitely part of the funnel, so I'm not going to get too far deep into that with what we do and our products and how we do it. But we do start with ClickFunnels. It connects to ClickFunnels, and like the funnel continues to go as much as we can through the software, right? So you can think of it like that it is your playground. You can throw ads inside of your own apps for more features or other apps. So you could do an app that is purely free, it does a certain thing, and it's low cost. Another thing, and by how does it make it low cost, is you can think of things happening in the browser or things happening in the server. And if you can make things happen in the browser, then it's essentially on the person using the website. That's where the compute costs and everything happens. So if you were to say, I want to create a PDF parser, and I want to be able to allow anyone to upload a PDF and then change it into Markdown or something like that. You could definitely do that a variety of ways. One way you could do that is in a server and then send it to the server, and then it does all the stuff, and then it sends it back to the web browser. You can also do that same thing with like a paid API service that you send it to them. They go in their web server, and then it sends it back to the client. or you could do it in the web browser, which is then using the power of their computer with like open source technology to then try to parse the PDF, right? So in both, there's three different ways. Uh, you're going to either pay for it like directly through your own bandwidth of your server, or you're going to pay for it through the API, or you can use the browser and not pay for it, right? Will the results be better? Obviously, the paid services are going to have more robust things that they're doing to be able to parse the variety of PDFs in the world. So that's how you can think of it, right? So it's like, okay, I'm going to do something that's free, and I want to be able to make sure that it's a free app, that it's not going to cost me much. Like, I don't want to be racking up money here. So therefore, my PDF parser is going to be using a client side thing. So I would have to say to it, we want to parse it inside of the web browser, right? And that would just be like the knowledge that you bring to the table. But if you were to pay for this, like if you're selling it, then you're like, okay, I want to provide a better experience with that particular thing. Then you would probably opt for the API or the web server version, and then do more, right? Because there's PDFs come in all kinds of formats, right? With images and all this fun stuff. So it comes down to, and then another thing is just to throw that out there is like, okay, if I have to pay for the PDF being parsed every single time it's parsed, how much does that scale up, with the amount of users and blah, blah, blah. A simpler way is just to like do what most apps are doing here is you do credits. So say you have 10 credits, it costs you 1 credit per PDF to parse. And then that is how you would then offload some of that cost or all of the cost. So that way you can basically run it without being solely responsible for every single time that thing is hit, because you'll find with AI, and that's why I use PDF as an adjacent kind of thing, is because AI, everything costs money, right? So like that's kind of like how you have to, like, if you were to use AI, like this feature right here with AI inside of OverSkill is going to allow you to have AI calls within it. So that means you can just have like Claude Opus or ChatGPT, or say you want to have a chat or an image or do something with AI, you can do it here, and it's going to show how much kind of credits it's going to do. And you would ideally want to do the math, so the cheapest ones right here and all this other stuff, so that way you can provide it to your users. They pay for credits, because you do not want to do this and then allow a bunch of people to use your AI and then realize it's costing you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, because it can get very expensive. So this is like it's an interesting thing. It's a very interesting thing, because we want AI to be cheaper and more accessible, but it's actually kind of in a lot of ways getting more expensive for a lot of this, because it is essentially doing more all the time. So that what's happening here is kind of like it's a loop. It's like, hey, AI, do this thing. And then now once you're done that thing, okay, now there's more. So it's kind of always in this loop of, is there more to do? Yes. Is there more to do? Yes. Is there more to do? Yes. And then eventually it goes, well, actually, no, we're pretty much done. There's a whole list of things, we're done. And that's kind of like what's being represented through this task progress. And yeah, that's like ultimately like what's happening inside of Claude. It's what's happening inside of Codex and stuff. Is just a loop that is asking, is there more to do? And if so, let's do it. What did we just do? Is there more to do? Let's do it. Keep doing that. Yeah, that's essentially how you have to think about what is actually happening in terms of like the back end here. So there's multiple steps. You can think of like the reasoning and the thinking is the same as like the output, right? It's just putting that context in a different area and thinking like, or like, being like, okay, we need to do all this stuff. This is my thoughts and my reasoning, and like, back and forth. Essentially, it's just like word coding, it's just editing those words over and over and over again until it's satisfied. Then it uses that context to then build out whatever it needs to, in this case, the landing page or all that fun stuff. So with this, like, I just ranted this whole time. You would not want to sit here and like actually like look at this stuff. You want to like go to a new tab, like continue on, like what's the next step beyond this, right? So okay, your app's being built. What do you need, right? You always need emails and all these other things. So start working on those things so you can act in parallel, because it all needs to compound in a lot of ways, and you can act in parallel, like so both in parallel. The only way that like the AI can do this faster is instead of doing one agent, it could do 10 agents, it could do 100 agents. And then when you have to think about, okay, is there's 100 agents doing one thing, well, obviously fragmentation, you can't have them all doing the exact same thing because then they'll trip over each other. So you could, once this is happening, you move over to the next thing. So like, like do creative ads, do emails, do whatever you need to do, so as long as it's parallel, so that way you're getting a shorter work time and getting more. And it does take a lot of training in a sense, because you have to context switch the whole thing. Instead of it being a very linear sequential thing, it's more of a blast, and it's like a shotgun of like many things all at once. Oh my gosh, that was loud. But yeah, that's how you kind of have to think of it. So now we got our app. It definitely took the fire thing way too literally, in terms of like, I didn't say like, make it everything look like fire. But anyways, so we can trust that everything went good on that side, and we're just going to look at what this happened. So we're going to, okay, so the burn rate, is this going to do something interesting? Okay, so 3 steaks, real steaks. Okay, so let's just light it up. That's funny. Okay, so this one didn't create. Oh, it's because I'm logged in. Okay, yeah, interesting. But if we were to publish this, because if I go here and then I go to, yeah, and then there's a log out button. So right away, like, as I noticed, okay, I'm already logged in, So until midnight. So it's, this one is, email the big boss. That's going to be $25. Then, yeah, okay. Take out trash, and that's gonna be $1. That's my chore. Okay, so I got $30 at stake. 0 rescued from finish your task before midnight or it burns. So we basically have an app here. Let's do something. So like, this is how I would do it. From here, I'd be like, okay, this little part right here, like, because that's like the whole kind of thing to me in my mind. Like, you have one unique thing, and what is that? You don't want that to be the most impressive things, or that's the thing that's most obvious, and then everything else around it supports that thing. And in this case, the to-do list and all that kind of makes sense. You kind of get it. It makes like your money is literally burning. Okay, awesome. But what we're gonna do is go over to the chat. And I'm going to paste that image in. Say, I want this to be much more dramatic and look like fire. So if we can use some kind of open source app or plugin to make it so that it looks like a legit fire on top of the money, and maybe make the money look a little bit more like money for that component. And then we're going to send that over. And essentially, so the prompt and the text, so like most times you like the image, so when it looks at the image, it doesn't like it deconstructs it, it doesn't see it like we see it, it pulls out information from it. So it will see the text, it will see the colors, and it'll see like kind of like a rough kind of like, but it turns that into words, right? So but what we do when we take a screenshot is it will go until midnight burn blah. So that gives it just more context of where in the app am I talking about, So that's why I take screenshots, and I would recommend you take screenshots. Screenshot plus things, so I don't have to say exactly, hey, it's in the here, right? So I can see exactly what's happening. Then let's see, we have a history. So total bank, current streak. So at this point, you're basically, now it's the vibe coding, where you're vibing. So you're going, okay, maybe this, and then maybe that, and maybe this. How do we make this better? What do we got to do? Now that you got this far in the video, I will say, if you think of it, like the more you do this, and like if you plan to do it a lot, say you're like, okay, I'm gonna become like an app developer, and I want to take on 50 clients in the next year or something, or I want to make 50 apps. You're gonna have to think about like systematizing it, and like after a while, since I've done this for quite some time now, is I end up thinking that vibe coding is a mistake. And that's when you start to realize like it should be, you want a good process that fits your flow. And if you're spending hours and hours and hours and hours and hours or days on it, um, it's either a learning process because it's your first time or your third time or whatever, and that's good. It's going to take you a while because then you have to like start to see things that you like and don't like. But what it really tells me is that the planning needs to be more like better. So if say you took 3 days to build your app, which is already incredible, right? Like that's ridiculously fast. But you felt like you could have done it in 1 day. All those 2 days were a learning process. But then for the next app, you have to think, how do I uh, get in front of all of those things sooner, right? So now that I seen this one was like, okay, the hard part, because everything else was good, like like it's what you expect. This is called eyebrow text, and it is like something that like I think Notion, no, what was it called? Dang it. There's one website that like did that, and it was a tech website, and then after that everyone did it, and literally AI cannot help but not do that. Like it's like it goes, well, we can do the small text, big text thing. So first thing, get rid of that. If you want to, that's the, it's like the M dash, there's all kinds of tells, but nobody in the reality of things really cares too much about like the artifacts of AI. What they care about is how obvious is this and how helpful is this or how engaging it is, right? So in this place, your money is literally burning. Put cash on the line for your daily tasks, finish before midnight, and watch the bills go up in flame. Procrastination has never cost so much. So imagine you connected Stripe, and then every time you didn't do it, it literally sent the money away. That'd be pretty crazy. But what's not grabbing my attention here, right, is obviously this. Like, what is that bar? It doesn't really make sense. And like, what's it trying to show me? So it would be like a fail on that in terms of just like, oh, this is the most unique aspect. It needs to be more unique. That's why from here I would only focus on this part being unique. Everything else is okay. And then once we have that, then we would go into like, Dan Kennedy and Russell Brunson mode and sneeze. Nope. Okay, no, I thought I had to sneeze. It's going to come out. But then we would start running sales copy and, make it, or ensuring that it is hitting the marks, right? In terms of it's not just a bunch of words on the screen, is that it's actually getting me to want to sign up. So like, and explaining it in a very simple way. So stake your day, watch it burn, beat the clock. Yeah, there's more we could do to like, sell this. I'd like maybe have some images or something on the page. And at this time, I'm kind of just like waiting. And this is kind of like the reality. Like with the new AI stuff, it is much crazier. So like Claude Code Fable came out, and I was already used to it running for an hour, like because the way I plan things so that it can run for hours. But with Fable and the way it does with workflows and all these other things that it has happening, which is just more advanced loops. Remember, it's just loops. Like it's just a for loop. Like it's just a circle. It's just gonna keep going in a circle until the goal is done. It's more like a spiral, going up or going down. But that's really is really simple. So even how a lot of this stuff works is just more complicated than it feels. But it can go that and do that for hours, right? So even here, this is going to take, it's probably, what was it, 15 minutes to get this thing up, and then a change is going to take 5 minutes. It's not because it's slow in the sense that it's like, yeah, like almost, it's better. It almost looks like Monopoly. That is hilarious. Yeah, so like we're getting better. Like the money's looking better, but like there's like a few things, and like maybe we're trying to focus on the hard thing here. So like there's a variety of options, because especially if you're like building something, where it costs credits, you can act in parallel or compound your effort. You can go and like from here, like if I couldn't figure this one out, I would almost want images and then be like, here's a whole bunch of images. We just need to put the number and change the number, and then it would have kind of like an image that we would just animate slightly or do an effect on, but that's completely not required in any way, right? Okay, so we're happy with that. That's our money on fire. Let's start seeing it here. Yeah, okay. Funny. What happens? Okay, and then boom. Okay. Oh yeah, boom. We saved $30. And then the fire went out. Yeah, so that's why the fire needs to be way more dramatic. It really, like, and then like, anyways, so once we've done that, we can't really exit it. So that would be a UX thing. So boom, you saved the money. Now you're there, but we can't really exit it. So at that point, we would be doing user experience stuff. So we would say, hey, now once the boom goes off, I can't actually exit it, right? So that's part of the planning. And like, so it should have caught this, but it didn't. So the more you can be ahead of these things, the less time you have to spend fixing these things. But my wife just came home, so I'm going to finish this one up. I do think that is awesome. So in total, this app has cost us 10,000 credits, roughly, and we're going to publish it. So let's publish this app, and now we're going to take the app, and it's going to then set up a deployment and then deploy it, and it's to the edge, which means it's like, spread around the internet on the closest server to your country and your city, right? So if you're in Toronto, it's going to pick a server that is super, super close to you, so it always feels fast. And if you're in Egypt, it's going to pick a server that is much closer to you instead of hitting the one in Toronto. So that's what it means by on the edge. It's like getting you as close as possible. And that's all stuff that is taken care of, right? So we have the database and all this other stuff with the user authentication. Those are all choices that are making it so that you can just focus on what I just did, which is trying to make the money be on fire, right? It's not about thinking about all the technical side of it. So that way, if you were to go, so that's where the one hiccup is if you go to ChatGPT or Claude and you make a plan, and then it tries to add technology in there, and then you give it to OverSkill, it will contradict potentially, because it might say, hey, use this technology, and then it'll be like, well, I don't, it might suggest for you to create the app outside of OverSkill if it's too technology focused. You're supposed to be thinking about the what, not the how. So in this one, I just thought about the what, which is the to-do list with money on fire. I did not think about how it was going to do it at all. Normally I would have to, like, the first question would be like, what technology, because it's going to make a big difference, and this is already sorted for you. So it is doing all the developer stuff now. Like it is building the app, it's going to deploy it, and it's going to propagate it and give you the URL. So at this time, like, it's not quick, and just like building the app, which was not quick. So there's a variety of things to like wait on. So that's why it's very much imperative that you get used to this and then act in parallel, so that you're not sitting around and talking to yourself into a webcam on the computer. You're actually doing something else with your time. So when you're deploying this, like all developers do, we just work on the next thing, right? We just like put this down and then work on the next thing, and then come back to it, and then it'll be deployed, right? So now you have unpublished changes. It's not fully deployed yet. It should any second. So yeah, just now we've got it. Yeah, so it's like, it's fun in a lot of ways, because then the average person who is using this experiences a lot of what developers have experienced for quite a while, but it's all abstracted away. So dailymoneygoals.overskill.app. So you go here, and you can see that sign in is going to do, so it's powered by OverSkill for this one. I'm not going to dive too much into like how the sign-in works, because honestly I don't fully know, and since I'm already logged in, it's like not a good demo. But now we have the app online, we can then change the domain, do all the things, and at this point for something like this would be like making, like I said, like that one part much more obvious, much more impactful for that one unique angle, whatever it is, making sure it's very easy to understand what it is, and that the UX on everything is exactly as you'd expect it. And then once that's done, send traffic to it, check your logs, do all kinds of things over here. So you probably want to monetize it. Like basically, so much of this has been sorted for you, and that's the cool part. Again, the code is visible here. So if we were to just look, so here are a whole bunch of components that it's created. So for instance, like a select box on the app. So this select box, anywhere there's a select box on the app, it's all gonna use this component. So, and that is a way of a great design because it's consistent, but it's also efficiency. So that way everything is, so when it needs to create that one thing, it's only gonna touch the one part of the app instead of having to go and create it wherever it feels like it's the most relevant. And then seems fast, but then that adds up over time and then it becomes more bloated, takes longer to edit anything. So that was just a small thing. Let's just go and see if there's a component here for the fire thing. Not seeing a obvious component for that, but either way, so we created an app and then we deployed it. We can see how better it could be, the app, in terms of like, trying to figure out a real use for it. But I don't think there is a real use for it. Oh, it even shows us right here. It's actually 3,000 credits. So I'm not sure how much that actually cost. But that is how you would do it. So you could potentially make multiple apps and have them all flow into each other. You can have one giant app. But the way things are going, I would say smaller apps, simpler, faster, tighter ideas will do better than an all-in-one kind of thing, or you can grow into it. Depends on your audience, depends on what you're building. Either way, this is OverSkill, and that was my first app where you can burn money for your to-do list. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.